Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Paul Harris and I'm president of the City Club's Board of Directors. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Sari Feldman, Executive Director of the Cuyahoga County Public Library. As we will hear today, public libraries are transforming themselves in a digital age. Of course, they've always been special places and for many generate fond memories of reading in a communal environment and expanding our knowledge. As an aside, as I was preparing for today's program, the only negatives I could think of were memories of navigating the Dewey Decimal System, which I could never quite figure out. Maybe I shouldn't admit that, or finding that the book you thought you had located wasn't actually in the place where it was supposed to be on the shelves. As stated at its website, the Cuyahoga County Public Library's mission is to, quote, be at the center of community life by creating an environment where reading, lifelong learning, and civic engagement thrive, end quote. The library has a total collection of over 3 million items to read, watch, listen to, and play, and has an expanding digital collection. It serves residents in 47 communities and is implementing a facilities master plan to further its mission and also lower operating costs. The library is one of the best and busiest in the United States and has earned repeat 5-star recognition from the Library Journal. There is, by the way, a great quote at the Library Journal's website, quote, all libraries are good, some are great. Ms. Feldman's path to the local and national leadership position that she holds today included majoring in English at the State University of New York in Binghamton, where she earned her Bachelor of Arts degree. She later worked as a librarian for the Dane County, Wisconsin Correctional Facility, and inspired by that experience, decided to become a professional librarian, earning a master's degree in library science from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Ms. Feldman served as an adjunct faculty member at Syracuse University School of Information Studies, where she taught graduate courses in library management, reference services, and grant writing. Today, Ms. Feldman is recognized as an innovator and thought leader in her field. I have to say she's won a whole lot of awards, but last year she received the Charlie Robinson Award, an honor that, quoting from the American Library Association's website, is bestowed upon, quote, a public library director who, over a period of 7 years, has been a risk taker, an innovator, and or a change agent in a public library, end quote. And of course, earlier this year, Ms. Feldman was elected president of the American Library Association, which was founded in 1876 and is the nation's oldest library association. She currently serves as president-elect for the association and will begin her stint as president next year. Her active community leadership includes service as president of the Board of Trustees of Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. She, not surprisingly, enjoys reading and also is a bit of a fitness buff. And in fact, in the Cleveland Jewish News, she reported last year in a story that she was dedicated and very serious about staying in shape. So I'm pleased to present, on behalf of the City Club of Cleveland, Sari Feldman, Executive Director of the Cuyahoga County Public Library.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Paul. Thank you all for being here, and especially for that generous introduction. So I know it's a dangerous thing to single out any one individual when you're a room full of friends and supporters and colleagues, but I have to recognize Hope Adelstein, who is sitting with me at the head table today. So Stanley and Hope are strong supporters of the Cuyahoga County Public Library, but it's Hope who's distinguished herself as the first woman to be appointed to the Cuyahoga County Public Library Board and the first woman to serve as the president of our board. She was a trailblazer for women like me, and I think that deserves a round of applause. So a funny thing happened since the last time I spoke at the City Club in 2007. Some things changed. The City Club has a new Chief Executive Director. Cuyahoga County Public Library has 7 new buildings. Both the City Club and the library are using Twitter now to express ourselves in 140 characters, an idea that seemed crazy in 2007. And you all can hashtag that progress or something else if you would like to. The City Club and America's libraries have seen an expanded vision, changing communities, and increased opportunities for access through the use of new technologies. But what was true for the City Club and libraries then is true for us today. Quoting from the City Club's website are words that speak to the heart of libraries across this nation. We firmly believe in the free expression of all ideas and the benefits of open exchange. We are nonpartisan, we do not take positions on issues, and we are fierce advocates of engagement. Now, if you don't know much about me professionally or personally, frankly, you know everything about me professionally after Paul's introduction. You may have come here today to hear me wax poetic about cozy reading nooks or call out some scary statistics about the decline of the American reading public. But if you followed my campaign around the nation for the American Library Association presidency, you'd know that I don't believe the future of libraries will be found in cozy reading nooks. I'm a reader, and you might know that Cuyahoga County Public Library has made 2014 a year of reading, and our Read 365 campaign is all about connecting customers with great materials. So the truth is, I actually feel pretty good about our community of readers. And yes, books have been considered our brand for decades, but now it's time to rethink our brand and more clearly articulate our value. Ask an education expert why reading at grade level in the third grade is important, and they will tell you that third grade is the inflection point, the time when we transition from learning to read to reading to learn. So reading is an act of learning. It's not just nonfiction and learning fact, opinion, and personal narrative. It's in the poetry like Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, where we learn about democracy and equality and community. It's the vivid fiction of Charles Dickens' world and Great Expectations, where we learn about class, loyalty, and ambition. It's the genius of Toni Morrison's storytelling that teaches us about race, identity, and the power of language. Think for a moment of books that change the world. It's fiction and nonfiction. It's works that incite and inspire, that challenge and confirm, that set our imagination free. According to author David McCullough, we must not think of learning as only what happens in schools. It is an extended part of life. The most readily available resource for all of life is our public library system. Libraries are bastions of intellectual freedom, places where curiosity, exploration, and knowledge meet inquiring minds. Libraries are places of learning. Unlike traditional educational institutions, libraries inspire and support self-directed learning. Can you remember visiting your school library as a child and being able to take any book off of the shelves that you wanted to read? Have you experienced the excitement and wonder of a child who attends a library story time and becomes fully immersed in the world of those characters that are brought to life by the librarian? Or maybe you've witnessed or experienced the library as that place where someone comes to start over, to reinvent themselves with career services and support, to find and connect with that job opportunity that would be inaccessible were it not for library services and open broadband connection. Within the library profession, we make distinctions about libraries that are in many ways artificial. For our customers and patrons, school, public, academic, special collection libraries, they are not different. They are places where people turn to read and learn. And while libraries are a place, my conversation will not be bound by location, nor is it a discussion of libraries versus the web. We know that in hand-to-hand combat, libraries always win. We are places where individuals or groups meet the expertise of qualified staff and are then changed by the serendipity of unanticipated discovery. I think Patricia Schroeder, former president of the Association of American Publishers, said it best. Those who declared librarians obsolete when the internet rage first appeared are now red-faced. We need them more than ever. The internet is full of stuff, but its value and readability is often questionable. Stuff doesn't give you a competitive edge. High-quality related information does. So I want to spend my time with you today talking about the future and the library's role in the future. There are two trends expanding opportunities for libraries right now that strike me as interesting in their relationship to learning, and that's the sharing economy and big data. I also want to discuss information policy issues, including privacy and digital access, that have the potential to dramatically affect, for better and for worse, the library's ability to deliver on its promise of free and open access for all. So let's look at the first disruptive trend that's impacting the global economy and redefining the concept of open access. I'd like to talk about collaborative consumption, or what's been coined the sharing economy. The proliferation of businesses like Uber, Airbnb, and Quirky are demonstrating a shift in attitudes toward ownership. In Thomas Friedman's July 19th New York Times column, he identified what's at the crux of Airbnb's success. They've created a platform of trust between host and guest. Interestingly, the whole premise of collaborative consumption that services like Airbnb are built on follows a familiar library model. It's a platform where trust and access trumps ownership. Recent reports calculate the sharing economy to generate an estimated $3.5 billion annually, and this economy is projected to grow to $110 billion in just a few years. Practical examples of the sharing economy abound in library spaces. Cleveland Public Library's Seed program offers customers an opportunity to access free seeds with the understanding that gardeners will plant them and bring back saved seeds to share with the next crop of customers. In Berkeley, California, there's a tool lending library, so no one has to find room for that cramped hedge trimmer that they only use once a year. At Cuyahoga County Public Library, we offer one of the nation's largest toy lending libraries, which encourages families to take home and play with the finest educational toys. The Digital Library of America is a model for sharing, bringing together millions of digitized items from libraries, archives, and museums to make them available to the world. Through professional expertise, the collection is enabled for discovery and learning about our cultural heritage. And perhaps the ultimate is Ottawa City Library, which offers customers a chance to check out a Somali refugee, a judge, an HIV-positive man, a Peking opera performer, or a police officer as part of the Human Library program, Real People, Real Conversations. The Ottawa Library is bringing dozens of diverse people into its branches, encouraging patrons to check them out for 20-minute one-on-one chats. They are literally circulating interesting experiences. What I find most provocative about the sharing economy trend is that it signals something larger for libraries. It has to do with the attitude driving collaborative consumption. Millennials in particular are responsible for propelling the sharing economy forward based on their attitudes toward ownership and the desire to spend money more on experiences instead of stuff. If experience is valued over stuff, libraries must adapt in a way that means less focus on our collections, the library's stuff, and more focused on experience. In other words, the library of the future will be less about what we have for people and more about what we do for people. 3D printers, digital video equipment, green screens, and animation labs are now among standards available in academic school and public libraries. Libraries across the nation are creating platforms for community publishing. In fact, many academic libraries have taken over university publishing, bringing research, writing, and sharing together. At CCPL, we are about to launch Self-E, a digital self-publishing sharing platform where local writers will have the opportunity to upload their content and share it with local readers. Libraries created the original sharing environment, and as we reimagine what we can share, where we convene, and who qualifies as a trusted source in this new sharing economy, the library emerges as an expert leader in this space. The notion of sharing carries over to the next trend I wish to explore related to libraries and learning, which is big data. Big data involves massive and complex data sets that can provide fascinating insights into behaviors, attitudes, risks, and trends. IBM estimates 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are created every day from a variety of sources, including sensors, social media, and billions of mobile devices. By some estimates, 90% of all data has been created in the last 2 years. In academic libraries particularly, big data represents powerful opportunities for research. Open source tools like OpenRefine can allow researchers to locate, scrub, connect, and reuse open data for new purposes. According to a recent White House report on big data, the declining cost of collection, storage, and processing of data, combined with new sources of data like sensors, cameras, and geospatial technologies, mean that we live in a world of near ubiquitous data collection. And just last year, President Obama signed an executive order on open data to make federal information resources accessible and discoverable for the general public. This data has the power to catalyze and influence action for organizations of all kinds. Hospitals use big data to predict and prevent the spread of illness. Retailers use big data to identify consumers as critical life milestones to better market products. This kind of information is arguably public knowledge. Government satellites are funded by public dollars, and consumer behavior information comes directly from individuals going about their daily lives. So where and how can the public access big data? Big data? Right now, they really can't. It's only a relatively small number of organizations that have the resources to employ big data tools and technologies and benefit from the learning it offers. An example might be the insurance industry using advanced modeling techniques to prepare for the planet's changing weather. Take the Climate Corporation, which has created fully automated weather insurance products using big data analytics. From a research and information perspective, data provides rich opportunities to library professionals who are trained to manage information. Big data also offers opportunities for libraries to better serve customers by learning about behaviors, preferences, and interests. Imagine if libraries could cross-index customer visits or circulation data with literacy rates, household income, or educational attainment to get a better picture of customer needs. But if this is all starting to sound a little too Orwellian, we can acknowledge that the vast information and learning that big data presents comes with serious considerations. And this brings us to the next key issue that I want to discuss as it relates to the future of libraries: privacy. Libraries operate following several core values. One of the most important and fundamental values involves the belief that people should be free to explore ideas without the government or anyone else watching. Libraries value intellectual freedom and privacy because they foster an open environment of learning. I came to the library profession following the famous case of Zora Horn. Might not be famous to you. In 1972, Ms. Horn, a head reference librarian at Bucknell University, went to jail for 3 weeks after refusing to testify for the prosecution in the case against Philip Berrigan, an anti-Vietnam War priest and activist, and the so-called Harrisburg Seven. Ms. Horn refused to testify and give information on the basis of intellectual and academic freedom. Although she found it difficult to work in the profession, even after the charges of conspiracy were dropped, she remained a champion for the rights of privacy and intellectual freedom. Now we fast forward to Peter Chase and Barbara Bailey, librarians in Plainville, Connecticut, who received a national security letter to turn over computer records in their libraries on July 13, 2005. Unlike a suspected 1,000 of other people around the country, Chase, Bailey, and 2 of their colleagues stood up to the FBI and refused to comply, convinced that the FBI had no right to intrude on anyone's privacy without a court order. The national security letters do not require a judge's approval. A gag order was then imposed. After the Bridgeport, Connecticut court ruled that the librarians' constitutional rights had been violated, the government appealed the decision in the U.S. District Court in Manhattan. Today, these Connecticut librarians are the only ones who can talk about life with an NSL gag order, despite the likelihood that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other similar stories out there. Anyone else violating the gag order is subject to 5 years in prison. As technology changes how libraries deliver service and how we can best support learning at all levels, we start to bump up against philosophical questions about privacy and the role libraries can and must play in reasonably protecting it. The American Library Association is actively involved in advocacy efforts related to privacy, as we see the ways in which personal information associated with our digital footprint may be shared without permission or knowledge. For example, the ALA has called for a presidential veto of the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2014, which authorizes private communication companies to share evidence of cybersecurity threats with multiple arms of the federal government. Now let's be clear, preventing cyber attacks represents an important national security objective. However, the language of this particular bill makes no effort to effectively limit the amount of personally identifiable information included in threat reports. It gives companies that share data virtually blanket immunity for any harm caused to the customer as a result of unjustified or excessive sharing. From a learning perspective, the possibility of surveillance, whether direct or through digital records of speech, research, and exploration, undermines the democratic ideals of free and open exploration. One cannot exercise the right to read and learn if the consequences could mean reputational damage, ostracism, or criminal penalties. Intellectual freedom and privacy provide the assurance that one's choice is not monitored. Even as we recognize the complexity of security in the United States and the role that information plays in global security, defending the privacy of individuals is one of the most fundamental tenets of the library profession. For libraries to flourish as centers for uninhibited access to information and learning, librarians must stand behind the user's right to privacy and freedom from inquiry. We know that technology will only continue to transform the ways in which information is created and consumed. Therefore, privacy remains salient. But even more fundamental for libraries is the promise of digital access and training. Libraries are uniquely and rather ideally positioned to help all members of society get up to speed or remain engaged in rapid shifts in technology. Digital inclusion is about equitable access to internet-connected devices and online content, as well as the skills needed to take advantage of the educational, economic, and social opportunities associated with technology. 98% of libraries provide free Wi-Fi, technology training on computers, and e-government tools. 90% of libraries offer access to ebooks, up from 76% just 2 years ago. Again, libraries provide two essential pieces: access to computers and the training to use them. Access to content continues to be a challenge for all libraries across the nation. We have many champions working with publishers to ensure that libraries of all types can purchase digital books, audiobooks, video, music, magazines, from the most popular to the most essential to the learning environment. We are fortunate to have the world's foremost provider of digital content to libraries right in our own backyard. Overdrive, headquartered in Garfield Heights, has been a leading force in licensing content for public, school, and academic libraries. The American Library Association has also worked diligently on these issues. I had the privilege of co-chairing the Digital Content in Libraries Working Group for the ALA over the past 3 years. Why today, all of the major publishing companies now sell content to libraries, issues around business models, preservation of digital content, and pricing still permeate the conversation for libraries and librarians. As a library director, I am pleased to offer my customers access to ebooks they want to read or audiobooks they want to listen to on any device. But as president-elect of the ALA, I share the worldwide concern about access and affordability, the balance between the interest of private business and the unique value of the library's collaborative consumption that must be resolved in the benefit of all. Another area where my local and national interests intersect is the future of broadband and Wi-Fi. Our One Community Network, of which I am a proud board member, is a model of sharing, the essential resource among the nonprofit sector. Today, broadband is a vital utility for all libraries across the nation. Without robust broadband, libraries will not be able to meet the technology needs of customers. But again, access and speed will be irrelevant without the skills necessary to use the tools, a concept known as digital readiness. A recent report from the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation cites that nearly 1/3 of American adults report low levels of digital readiness. To put this in context, approximately 70 million Americans are not digitally ready for robust online use. For libraries, digital readiness represents a tremendous opportunity to lead learning. At Cuyahoga County Public Library, we recently restructured a new learning and literacy division that includes dedicated digital literacy staff. We are especially proud of our partnership with the Northeast Ohio Media Group, which involves ongoing workshops in all of our branches that teach customers how to use the Plain Dealer e-edition. Without that training, our customers and people in this community would likely go without access to daily local news. At the national policy level, libraries are busy advocating for an open information environment. In recent weeks, libraries successfully advocated for FCC approval of updates to the E-rate program, which helps to connect libraries and schools to the internet. According to FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler, technology has changed, the needs of students and library users have changed, and now E-rate has changed. No responsible business would stick to a technology plan that was developed in 1998. Libraries are also speaking out in support of net neutrality or online non-discrimination. Net neutrality is an example of how technology is reactivating our profession around core values of intellectual freedom. Open access to information cannot exist in an environment where certain providers have to pay more to remain in an online fast lane. The future of the open internet is essential to learning in libraries. At Cuyahoga County Public Library, we are using the trends and issues I've outlined this afternoon: sharing economy, big data, privacy, digital literacy, and others to inform our planning. Our goal is to understand customer needs today and into the future so that we remain a relevant place for information and learning. Our current capital improvement program is designed to create library spaces that are flexible enough to meet future needs. Our investment in 18 renovation and replacement building projects will also help us to operate more efficiently year after year. Cuts to our state funding and the ongoing reductions in local property tax have cost the library a cumulative $20 million loss since 2009. The capital projects and the planned cost savings in areas such as staffing and energy efficiency are essential to our financial viability. When I think about the future, I think that libraries of all kinds must operate with a sharp eye on a long-term financial strategy that will include cost saving and new revenue opportunities. I believe that we do ourselves a disservice when we look at libraries as nostalgic throwbacks at places that do not or should not change with the times. I can tell you from experience that it's not always popular to be the one advancing an organization in the direction of a new future when the present still clings to the vestiges of the past. But we have to find the strength, look forward, and bring others along. If the library profession builds our future exclusively based on what's worked in the past, then we won't survive. In my new role as president-elect of the American Library Association, I plan to push our organization and professions to better support innovation in libraries. I want to see public libraries doing more to embrace convenience, customer service, and content creation. I want to see school libraries driving technology integration in the classroom, helping teachers to find and leverage tools and techniques that advance learning. I want to see academic libraries central to university research and leading the big data revolution. I intend to challenge our libraries to build a nation of readers and learners, and to look to the future by becoming the place where schools, communities, and higher education converge. Because when you break it down to the most basic level, the thing about libraries that captures people's hearts and quickens their pulse and opens their eyes wide is the sense of possibilities that libraries create. I believe that we need libraries today more than ever, and that if libraries didn't exist, we'd be inventing them as a place of investigating, collaborating, browsing, reading, incubating, researching, and risk-taking. From the hallowed halls of higher education to the noisy halls of schools to the marketplace of ideas, libraries are at the center of learning. There are lofty statements and practical words of essential value of libraries spoken by great figures in history, celebrities, and of course writers. Let me close with the words of the late Ray Bradbury. Without libraries, what have we? We have no past and no future. Thank you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are enjoying a Friday forum featuring Sari Feldman, Executive Director of the Cuyahoga County Public Library and President-elect of the American Library Association. We'll return to our presenter in a moment for our traditional City Club question and answer period. And would ask that you start formulating your questions now, and please try to frame them as questions and keep them as short and to the point as possible. We welcome all of you here and those joining us via 90.3 WCPN, WVIZ PBS, 104.9 WCLV IdeaStream, or one of the many radio stations across the region and country that carry City Club programs. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC, and our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. On Thursday, August 21st, the City Club welcomes United States Secretary of Labor Thomas E. Perez. For more information about our upcoming and past forums, please visit us online at www.cityclub.org. Today, we welcome guests at tables hosted by Cuyahoga County Public Library, the Friends of Sari Feldman, she has many friends, and Friends of the Cleveland Public Library. We thank you all for your support. Now, as promised, we'd like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone here today, including guests. Holding the microphones today are Director of Programming Stephanie Jansky, there's Stephanie, and City Club intern Spencer Kiesel, there's Spencer. First question, please.
Thank you very much for everything that you had to say. It was wonderful. I'm wondering, when you're talking about the importance of privacy to everybody who uses our library resources, what sort of policy prescriptions would you have for our libraries and perhaps for our government to make sure that that becomes a reality?
laws in the Ohio Revised Code that ensure confidentiality and the protection of library records. We are specifically called out, so I thank you for that question. Currently, should there be a request from a police officer or some other government official, they are required to present a subpoena to gain access to those records. And I think that's what I was trying to convey, that with some of the new security efforts being put in place by Congress, we are losing sight of the need for that subpoena, for that legal paper. So thank you.
Ms. Feldman, currently the distribution of books seems to have changed a lot, and there seems to be a brewing dispute between folks like Amazon, who are changing over from our local bookstores, and a lot of the publishers and authors about access to books and the like. Is the Library Association, or are you getting involved in that in any way, or do you have a position?
So I'll start by saying our position is anything that gets people reading more is a great thing. So we have to start there. But at the same time, we certainly are concerned about the access to content, and the Library Association has worked very hard to achieve that. The new Kindle Unlimited program, although it does offer unlimited content, it's a very narrow world of content. So people can't get the bestsellers, which is something that libraries have achieved. Its complexity is also because publishers are still trying to figure out how to make money. So the association has been involved primarily in gaining access for libraries, for trying to present business models that will most effectively continue that access and also achieve the continuation of our publishing industry. And I think we'll see things smooth out in the coming years. Thank you.
Sari, I'd like to talk about books,
Okay.
particularly reference books and textbooks. Recently, I completed an executive search for a CIO, and as I was doing that, I did some research around new trends for technology in education, and I came upon a CIO in an Arizona town, small district, who is an advocate of the textbook-less schoolroom. He contends that when textbooks are published, by definition, they're obsolete. And so whether you go from a hard book to an e-book, same problem, they're both obsolete. So he advocates going to the internet as sources of information. And rather than teaching students the Dewey Decimal System, you teach them how to access online information and the skills necessary to discern credibility of information sources. So what is your reaction to the future of reference in textbooks?
Well, I'm not sure about the textbook industry, not something that I follow. We certainly think that those skills around research and being able to discern accuracy of information is a critical learning skill for students. But we also know that the sustained reading, the reading that comes from reading a book, is a very important skill as well, and one that is currently being looked at as a concern for the future of education, that students can't really sit for long periods of time and concentrate on text and then pull out main ideas from text, whether they're fiction or nonfiction. So my personal belief, it's always a balance.
Oh, sorry. You mentioned in your talk today about the remarkable technology which is being used by libraries throughout the country, throughout the world, actually. I'm thinking in terms of those tiny little tablets you can purchase for about $100 by Kindle or whatever, and have millions of books available to read on your palm of your hand, so to speak, just by having that there. Now, to what extent is that basically causing any concern to libraries when you have these things available right at your fingertips in your own home?
Well, we're actually excited about all of this digital content for a couple of reasons. One, because people are still using the library as the discovery platform. So whether they're downloading from our website, from our suggested book lists or bookshelves that we put together for people to download, or contacting a librarian electronically, or coming in for some support to learn how to download. We're an invaluable resource for them. But we also find that people who read digitally, who are big readers, also read physical books. So for many of those people, they're rediscovering the library. So it's a very exciting time for libraries to be at the forefront of supporting kind of a brave new book industry, and also to be reimagining the way we relate with our customers.
Sorry.
Yes.
This area is absolutely unique, I think, in having not only a wonderful Cuyahoga County library system, the wonderful Cleveland Public Library system, and independent libraries as well as academic libraries. Is this a unique situation in the country? Do we undervalue what we have? You are the major resources. You are also the major service givers in this area.
I think the variety of libraries and options for people is unprecedented in two ways. One, that libraries in Ohio have been afforded, we're so fortunate, public libraries get funds from the state of Ohio through the Public Library Fund. While we're seeing an erosion to that fund, and for the dollars that are given to public libraries, the fact that it existed for a long time allowed public libraries in Ohio to truly innovate and to be at the forefront of so many services. But also, because we get that public library funding, any resident of Ohio can use any public library in the state of Ohio. And that's very unique, because in most of the country where states don't provide funding, your library usage is stopped at the border of the library community. Go on YouTube. Stephen Colbert did a very funny story about this. So,
Sari, congratulations on your election.
thank
Round of
you.
applause for that. That's a nice nice feather in your cap, and a nice feather in the cap of the Cuyahoga County Public Library System. In full disclosure, I'm a former page at the Parma Ridge branch, and I'm a lifelong member of the Friends of Parma Libraries. So my question is, I received the email the other day regarding our ability to keep things out for going down from 3 weeks down to 2 weeks because of funding and so forth. So could you just elaborate a little bit on, first of all, what's happened with funding? I know what's happened on the municipal end as far as funding goes, because that's my area. But how is that affecting libraries? And secondly, how is that going to translate into the services the libraries provide as far as ordering of materials and so forth?
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for your support as president of council in Parma. As I said in my remarks, we have had a cumulative loss of more than $20 million since 2009, both from reductions in the state public library funding and reductions in our collection of local property taxes. And at Cuyahoga County Public Library, we have worked very, very hard to maintain full services. We continue to have all 27 branches open 7 days a week, 4 nights a week, to provide robust collections for people and to have a lot of customer support to introduce and expand new technologies. But the money will only stretch so far. So we looked at our collection dollars, and we recognized that if we reduce the loan period to 2 weeks, we would enable people who choose kind of bestsellers, popular materials, to have those books as quickly as with a 3-week loan, where we were buying more copies to support that 3-week loan, so we could reduce the number of copies we purchase. And we chose 2 weeks. We want one standard circulation period so that the public doesn't have to guess on this. But we have a very strong renewal policy. You can renew more than 20 times at the Cuyahoga County Public Library. So if nobody's waiting for that material, you can keep it out. We have a lot of materials, and if everything came back, we wouldn't have room on our shelves. So it's really to move the most popular materials quickly and satisfy people in the libraries.
I have a question here. Hi.
Hi.
My understanding is that as the incoming president of the American Library Association, you're planning a trip to Asia soon, to Mongolia perhaps.
Yeah.
My question is, what message do you plan to take with you? What are you advocating for there?
Right. Okay, so that's exciting. I will be going to Beijing for the China Conference on Libraries, and the State Department, my husband says I'm a spy, has now asked me to continue on to Mongolia to speak there. And what's interesting is that China continues to define their libraries, and particularly their public libraries, as very important centers of literacy and education. And what I'll be doing there is helping to kind of discuss models of structure for public libraries and public library systems, particularly for around boards of trustees, which is something they're very interested in. And I also hope to trek in the Gobi Desert while I'm there.
Sari, I had a question. As people become more introverted with smartphones, the other function of libraries are as community centers. Going forward, how do you see libraries as community think tanks and centers that bring people together?
Oh, that's a fantastic question for us, because we've all of our new building projects are around convening the community and different kinds of spaces to bring people together. And so we've created, everything from small meeting rooms to a large auditorium in Parma, where we were fortunate to host the first forum between the two candidates for county executive. And it's that opportunity to have an open door where people from the community can initiate a program, can turn to us to design a program, or can attend a program. Because there are so few places today in our community where you cross paths with your neighbors, your friends, your people who share common interests, and we want to create that environment. That's essential to our future. And I'll just add one more thing, that as people are involved in more distance learning, the ability to form cohort groups in libraries around learning is also becoming part of our service delivery model. Thanks.
Hi. What kind of benefits are you going to bring back to Cuyahoga County in your role as president of the American Library Association? Tell us about how that's going to affect our county.
So what I'm planning to do is shine a big spotlight on what's going on here. So we have amazing work in Cuyahoga County and in all Ohio libraries. And we are starting to see people who will visit us from around the nation and around the world to see what's going on here. And, I hope that in the future, somebody might come with and see what we're doing, come up with a great entrepreneurial idea, and decide to plunk their business right down in Cuyahoga County to get it off the ground. We've had experience in the past with somebody who developed a text messaging service between libraries and their customers who, developed their business here through us. So I think that there's a tremendous opportunity to see what's going on here. All of these people will stay in our hotel rooms, eat in our restaurants, and generally celebrate the fabulous things that are happening in Cleveland and Cuyahoga County.
Thank you very much. As I listened to you talk, it reminded me of another leader I respected so very much in our part of the country, Richard Shatton, a man who had a vision. As you speak, you talk about vision. Reminds me of Jonathan Swift's quote, "If you understand vision, you have to see the art of the invisible." As you've looked and worked, we appreciate the vision and the discovering the invisible. That's so important to make our part of the world much more exciting. Through libraries, I hope we can learn to think. Yes, you talk about learning, but I'm more concerned about the process of thinking. That's so valuable to all of us.
Thank you. Thanks. And we have quiet space in all of our buildings where people can stop and think. I agree.
Hi, Sari. I wanted to ask you a question about one of the big trends that you outlined in your talk, and that specifically is around open data sharing.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned President Obama's commitment to open data sharing of federal public information. And at a recent public officials trip to Chattanooga, Tennessee, Mayor Andy Burke shared with the visiting delegation from Northeast Ohio that he had also made a commitment to open data sharing of all public information in the city and the surrounding areas of Chattanooga. And the unique partnership for the stewardship and the long-term preservation of the open data was with his library system. I wondered if you had a comment about how we might be able to perhaps learn from or perhaps initiate such an activity here in Northeast Ohio.
Well, I think that's great, because this whole idea of data sharing, I think, is a big part of our future for being a strong and innovative city. But I think the library could initiate those conversations and maybe bring together some disparate partners. We see the beginnings of it through our hospital systems starting to share that. From my perspective, I think there needs to be a conversation around school data. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for us to better serve young people in the after-school, weekend, and summer hours if we begin to understand more about what goes on in our communities. So third grade reading scores only tell a very small piece of the story. You know, what percentage of students are, you know, learning disabled or need a certain kind of special services? How are our schools using different kinds of reading systems to impact change in reading? What are schools offering? So I think that there's a lot of work. I would love to see the opportunity to convene and collaborate. I think sometimes just having, you know, kind of charts that rank us as communities instead of information that could bring us together around solutions is really a shame. So,
Mrs. Feldman.
hi.
Hi. If you could treat this as more than just a brick and mortar type of question,
Sure.
but I would like to ask you, how do you prioritize the use of existing space in library buildings to more efficiently benefit the community?
Okay, so when we think about space in our library buildings, we think about people first. How do people use our spaces? So we would look at, you know, who lives in a community that surrounds the library, who might come to those buildings, and what are the demographics of those people, some basic information. We would sit and observe and try to determine how people are interacting in our spaces, and then we would allocate to youth space, to adult space, to quiet space, to computers. I don't know if I'm getting really at the heart of your question, but we also spent an incredible amount of time meeting with and getting to know the people in our communities as we designed our new buildings. So we held both public meetings to have people tell us their hopes and dreams. We did something we call the World Cafe, where we showed pictures to people and asked them, you know, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they would want to see in their library. And we had focus groups to really include different voices, children, parents of children, teens, to make sure that our buildings reflected back to the community what they wanted to see.
Oh, thank you. In 2007, the Cuyahoga County Public Library conducted a statistically valid survey of the voters of Cuyahoga County with regards for a levy for building renovations, repair, and construction. And 90% of the respondents said that the library facilities were fine the way they are. My question is, why did you and the board of the Cuyahoga County Public Library decide to instead embark upon what might be $175 million expenditure for renovations, repair, and construction within the library facilities?
I think that when we went out for that particular survey, we were trying to determine whether or not we should go for an operating issue, a combined issue, or a bond issue at that time. And so some of it is the way the questions were asked. Cuyahoga County Public Library recognized that we had many facilities that were going to require a significant investment of dollars. We estimated at least $35 million just for repairs alone, without regard for any improvements, bringing buildings up to 21st century library standards, and for really making the kind of significant change and impact we needed to make. And we had worked with a community group of advisors, about 40 people, mayors, clergy, superintendents, different people from our communities who had really recommended to our Board of Trustees that every Cuyahoga County Public Library should be excellent. They wanted that equity of service delivery and that high quality of facility that matched our high quality of service. And we also determined we needed to build buildings that would last into the future. The final and most important piece was we saw the economic future for the library and knew that we would be seeing reductions in costs. And by making changes in our physical facilities, we've been actually able to reduce our operating budget by more than $4 million. We've been able to have open floor plans that require less staffing, and salaries and benefits are the most expensive piece for libraries. Thank you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we have been enjoying a Friday forum featuring Sari Feldman, Executive Director of the Cuyahoga County Public Library and President-elect of the American Library Association. Thank you very much, Ms. Feldman. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.